Taehyung finally confesses in a leaked podcast. He warned Jungkook about a certain idol, but Jungkook ignored him. Now everything is falling apart. You should have listened to me, Jungkook. That night in Tokyo, I saw everything. The sentence hung in the air like smoke from a slow-burning fire, suffocating and impossible to ignore. The static buzz of the old microphone barely masked the trembling in Taehyung's voice as he leaned forward, eyes narrowing behind the studio glass. The room was dim, lit only by the faint blue glow of the on-air sign above the door. Outside, the rain lashed against the windows of the hidden podcast studio in Daechidong, where this wasn't supposed to be happening. Jungkook froze. His hand tightened around the paper cup of now-cold coffee, knuckles white. He didn't need to ask what Taehyung meant. He remembered Tokyo. He remembered her. And he remembered the decision he made that night, a decision that twisted everything between them. Taehyung sat back, the leather chair creaking under him, the weight of his words finally out in the open after months of silence. You remember what I said to you on the rooftop? I told you she wasn't what she seemed. But you said I was just jealous. I didn't say that, Jungkook replied, voice low. But even he knew it was a lie. Taehyung shook his head, eyes burning. You didn't have to. You looked at me like I was trying to ruin something perfect. But I was trying to save you. A beat of silence passed before the producer behind the glass signaled that they were still recording. The podcast, secret, unreleased, raw, was never meant to be made public. But it had to be said. They had both agreed. Only now Jungkook wished he'd never stepped into the room. The tension between them was palpable, not just from what was being said, but from everything that had been left unsaid for nearly a year. The rift that had grown in the group, the late-night disappearances, the cryptic interviews, everything had led to this moment. Who told you to bring this up now? Jungkook asked, not quite angry, not quite calm. No one had to tell me anything, Taehyung said, his voice losing its restraint. I saw the headlines this morning. You think the truth won't surface just because you never talk about it? You think the members haven't noticed the way you've changed? Jungkook didn't respond. The rain outside grew louder, almost as if nature itself was trying to drown out the conversation. Taehyung leaned in again, his tone more personal now, almost pleading. That girl, the idol, she wasn't just bad for you, she was dangerous. She came to me before she met you. She asked about you. She asked what your weaknesses were. Jungkook's jaw tensed. You never told me that. Because I thought I could protect you without starting a war. The flash of betrayal that crossed Jungkook's face was almost imperceptible. But Taehyung saw it. And he knew he had crossed a line that could not be uncrossed. The podcast went on. Jungkook stood up from his chair. You want to protect me, or you just don't want to admit you were right? I want to understand why you didn't believe me when I was the only one who gave a damn. There it was, the wound, ripped open. Jungkook turned away, the muscles in his neck tightening, memories rushing in. Her laugh. Her voice. The way she made him feel like he was the only one who mattered. And the way she disappeared twice. She told me you were obsessed with control, Jungkook said, finally. That you always had to be the one calling the shots. Taehyung scoffed. So you believed her over me. She listened when I needed someone. You judged. Taehyung's fists clenched. I warned. You think I didn't notice the way she twisted things? The way she played you against the rest of us? Jungkook said nothing. Instead, he slowly sat down again, the defiance in his body language giving way to something else, exhaustion. Regret. You think I didn't pay a price? He whispered. Do you know what it's like waking up every day wondering if they saw the pictures too? For the first time since the recording started, Taehyung's voice softened. They did. But they stayed silent because they wanted to believe in you. Just like I did. The hum of the equipment was the only sound between them for a long while. She's back, Jungkook muttered. I got a text this morning. Just a picture. Of us. From that night. Taehyung's face went cold. So it's starting again. Jungkook nodded. You think she recorded you? Back then? I don't know. But if she did, it's all gone. The producer behind the glass gave them the signal. The segment was ending. You want me to cut this? The voice came in through the earpiece. Taehyung looked at Jungkook. No. Let it air. And just like that, the red light above the mic dimmed. But the truth, raw, painful, irreversible, was already out. The podcast was supposed to be private. A healing space. A confession booth. But it was now something more. It was a reckoning. Say it, Taehyung said, voice trembling not with fear, but with fury held back for far too long. Say she played you. Say she fooled you. The walls of the studio still felt heavy from the confession they just recorded an hour ago. The air hung thick with the scent of bitter coffee and sweat soaked into soundproof foam. Outside, the night deepened into a silence that was anything but peaceful because inside, two men who once trusted each other like brothers were now dissecting the corpse of that very trust. Jungkook sat on the floor now, back against the wall, legs stretched out before him. His hoodie soaked from the earlier rain clung to him uncomfortably, but he didn't care. His eyes were bloodshot, not just from fatigue but from the waves of emotion that kept crashing against the dam he was trying so hard to maintain. His fingers played with the edge of his phone, screen dimmed, but the last message still visible in his mind. "I don't know what she is anymore," he finally said. "A mistake? A virus? A dream?" Taehyung paced like a caged animal, hand running through his hair, breath uneven. "She walked into our circle like she belonged there. I felt at the moment she smiled at Jimin during rehearsal like she was testing waters. Measuring reactions." Jungkook flinched. "You think this is all just about you?" Taehyung snapped. "She came for all of us. She came for me," Jungkook growled, finally pushing himself to stand. "She looked me in the eyes, Taehyung. She chose me. Not Jimin. Not Namjoon. Me. And you think that makes it real?" Taehyung's eyes widened. "You think obsession is the same as love? Don't you dare lecture me about love. Not when you were the one warning me like some bitter gatekeeper. That's not what I was, eh? She said you hated that I was with someone who made me feel alive." Taehyung's laugh was sharp and humorless. "Alive? She isolated you. Made you paranoid. Had you looking through your phone like it was poisoned. You stopped singing for a month." Jungkook's face twisted in pain. "Because I was scared. I was scared you were right. And if you were, then it meant I let myself be destroyed by someone who didn't even care." "Then why didn't you walk away?" "Because," Jungkook said, stepping closer, "for the first time in a long time I wasn't Jungkook of BTS. I was just me. And I thought maybe that was enough." Taehyung's expression cracked, just for a moment, and something older, deeper showed behind his eyes: concern, guilt, heartbreak. "She never saw you. She saw the access. The headlines. The fame. She used you like a damn launchpad." Silence fell again, this time heavier than before. Then Jungkook's phone buzzed. A message. Just 3 words. "You remember this?" Attached was an audio file. Timestamp, 11:47 p.m. Tokyo. He played it. At first, only background noise. Glass clinking. A soft giggle. Then her voice, sweet, intoxicating, dangerous. "You think he suspects?" A pause. Then another voice. A man's. "Not yet. But soon. He's getting possessive." Taehyung's mouth went dry. "Who the hell is that?" Jungkook's hand shook. "I don't know." Taehyung grabbed the phone and replayed it over and over. This wasn't just manipulation. This was planned. Coordinated. "You think she had someone else?" Jungkook's voice dropped. "I think," Taehyung said slowly, "she was sent." Jungkook stared at him. "By who?" "HYD has enemies. Competitors. Industry players who'd love to bring us down. We've had stalkers, threats, hell, even Sasayangs who hacked our dorm's door code. But this? This was a long game. The idea sat with them like a ticking bomb." Jungkook collapsed onto the couch, head in his hands. "I feel like I've been living someone else's story. Like I was cast in a role I didn't audition for." "You were," Taehyung said softly. "We both were." Then the studio door opened. And Jimin walked in. His eyes scanned the room. He looked from Taehyung to Jungkook, sensing the electric tension instantly. "Is it true?" he asked. Taehyung's jaw clenched. "How much did you hear?" "All of it." Jungkook looked up. "Jimin." But Jimin held up a hand. "I knew something was wrong when she started messaging me after you blocked her. Asking about your schedule. Your habits. If you were talking about her." "She messaged you?" Jungkook blinked. "She messaged all of us," Jimin said, his voice tight. Namjoon shut it down. Hobi ignored it. Yoongi got furious. "But none of us knew how deep you were in it." Jungkook's chest heaved. "Why didn't anyone tell me?" "We tried," Jimin said, pain flashing in his eyes. "But you were already gone." Taehyung nodded. "I begged you to listen. That rooftop, remember that night?" "I remember every second." Thunder rumbled in the distance. Or maybe it was just the sound of everything finally collapsing. Jimin looked at both of them. "She sent me something too." He pulled out his phone. Pressed play. A video. Grainy footage. Hotel room. Jungkook's voice. Slurred, laughing. Her hand brushing his face. Then she looked at the camera. Directly at it. "Still think he's loyal?" She whispered. The video cut off. Jungkook backed away like he'd been punched. "I was drunk," he said. "I didn't even know that was being recorded." "She's planning something," Jimin said. "And it's bigger than you." "HYD needs to know," Taehyung said. "No," Jungkook said, eyes fierce. "Not yet." "Why not?" "Because if we tell them now, they'll bury it." They'll make it disappear. But this time I want the truth out. Even if it burns me. You're asking for chaos. I'm asking for closure. Taehyung stepped forward. Then we do it our way? Jimin looked between them. You're talking about releasing more? The full story, Jungkook said. Not the polished version. The raw truth. Through the podcast. That could destroy everything, Jimin warned. Or set us free, Taehyung added. Silence again. Heavy. Dangerous. Final. Then Jimin nodded. Then let's do it right. But no more lies. No more hiding. Jungkook breathed deep. She said she'd destroy me if I ever talked. Taehyung met his eyes. Then let's make her try. The war had begun. But this time it wouldn't be fought in secret. It would be heard. By millions. The next recording session was scheduled that night. They didn't sleep. They didn't rest. They wrote everything, names, dates, places, screenshots, audio clips. Every broken piece. Every buried truth. And when the mic turned red again, they told the world. The red light blinked again, and the silence that preceded Jungkook's voice was the kind that thickened like fog, visible, heavy, suffocating. The podcast mic sat between them like a loaded weapon, and in the shadows of the studio, 3 voices waited to unload truth that could crush them or set them ablaze. She wasn't supposed to be there, Jungkook began, eyes fixed on a point far beyond the soundproof walls. That night at the private rehearsal. It was invite only. No press. No outsiders. But she was there. In the dark. With a camera. Jimin leaned back slowly, a muscle in his jaw twitching. You never told us she followed you into rehearsal spaces. You said she respected your work. She told me she had connections, Jungkook said, his voice cracking slightly. She made me believe it was just access, not obsession. Don't confuse access with consent, Taehyung murmured, not bitter, resigned. Jungkook flinched, then nodded. I know that now. The studio was small, windowless, and still smelled like the echo of coffee and paper and too many sleepless nights. Outside, fans still had no idea that this secret project they were teasing was a full-blown confession, one layered in betrayal, lust, manipulation, and something else no one wanted to name just yet. Do you know what she told the staff? Jungkook continued. That she was hired by HYB's internal creative to do a documentary series. She had a fake batch. A fake portfolio. Hell, even a fake contract header with the company logo. Taehyung's eyes widened. She forged HYB credentials? I found out yesterday. One of the interns finally spoke. He said she offered him 500,000 Korean wons just to give her rehearsal schedules. Jimin slammed his palm onto the table, rattling the mic stand. She was never just a girl with a crush. This was surveillance. Jungkook exhaled sharply. And I let her into my house. You loved her, Taehyung said quietly. No, Jungkook answered without hesitation. I loved who I thought she was. She just wore the costume. The air grew colder. Or maybe it was just what the truth always felt like ice against skin that had long since gone numb. She recorded things, Jungkook whispered. More than just the Tokyo tape. I found one of her old phones in my apartment. Tucked behind the bookshelf. There's a folder. Labeled K_night. Password protected. But the preview thumbnails, what's on them? Jimin asked, even though part of him already knew. Jungkook swallowed. Me. In my room. Asleep. Changing. Talking on calls I thought were private. Taehyung's face darkened. She bugged you. She filmed everything. Jimin leaned forward. How did you not know? I trusted her. She said she liked capturing real moments. That it helped her understand people. I thought she was just weirdly artsy. She's a predator, Taehyung muttered. There was silence for a beat too long, the kind that bruised. Then Jungkook looked up. There's more. The room stilled. She met with Bang Si-hyuk. Jimin and Taehyung both stiffened. What? Jimin asked slowly, disbelief curdling into dread. Jungkook nodded. 2 weeks before the Tokyo trip. She told me she had a meeting with a producer. I thought it was just business. But I checked the building logs. She entered HQ, met him in his private office. 34 minutes. No assistants. No staff. Taehyung was already standing, pacing again. Does he know? I don't think he remembers her face. She used a different name. But get this, she mentioned something about launching her own label soon after that. And then she started asking me if I'd ever consider leaving HYB. Jimin looked like he'd been punched. She was trying to recruit you? She dangled freedom like a carrot. Said we could write our own music. Escape the scrutiny. She made it sound like a dream. Taehyung's lips curled. But it was always about control. She had a partner. Someone in the shadows. Maybe another idol. Maybe a producer. I don't know yet. But I found a second number linked to her private account. And guess whose voice I heard on a voicemail? Jimin leaned forward. Jungkook pressed play on his phone. A distorted male voice, keep feeding him what he needs to hear. When he breaks away, we move fast. Then her voice, he's close. He's tired. I just need one more night. The audio ended. Taehyung was frozen. She was part of a takedown. And I was the target. Jimin stood, eyes burning. No. We were the target. Jungkook's voice was a whisper now. I almost left. I almost walked away from all of you. From everything we built. But you didn't, Taehyung said. You're still here? Barely. Jimin walked to the glass window and stared at his reflection. This isn't just a scandal anymore. This is blackmail. Conspiracy. Maybe worse. Taehyung nodded. NHYB needs to hear it from us. Jungkook's shoulders tensed. They'll try to shut us down. Then we do what she tried to do, Taehyung said slowly. We go public. First. The idea sat in the room like a lit match. Jimin turned. Leak the tapes? Not all of them. Just enough to raise questions. To force transparency. Jungkook's voice was hollow. If we do this, there's no coming back. She'll retaliate. She already has, Jimin replied. Now it's our move. That night, the team edited the audio. Cut it carefully. Left enough breadcrumbs to ignite curiosity but not to burn the bridge just yet. They titled the next episode. The tape she hid. When it aired, the fandom erupted. Hashtags trended globally within minutes. Who is she? Why did Jungkook stay silent? Is Taehyung involved? HYB must respond. And then the DMs started coming. From staff. From stylists. From other idols. One message stood out. You're not the first. It came with a photo. Grainy but unmistakable. Her. Sitting beside another male idol, someone from a rival group. Smiling the same way. Wearing the same necklace. Holding a phone. Recording. Taehyung stared at the image. She's done this before. Jimin's face paled. She's done this to others. Jungkook whispered, and we're just the ones who fought back. The episode's closing line was left raw, unscripted, and devastatingly human. I didn't fall in love, Jungkook said, his voice heavy with every scar. I fell into a trap dressed like love. And I barely made it out. No outro music. No ad breaks. Just silence. And a truth no one could unhear. She's dating someone else now. The words came from Jimin, but they hung in the room like a grenade with the pin just pulled. Jungkook didn't flinch. He just blinked. Once. Twice. Then looked away. Taehyung stood near the studio door, jaw clenched, the skin around his eyes tightening. The walls of the podcast booth had never felt this small. The air was thin. No one moved for a full 20 seconds. She was seen at a rooftop bar in Gangnam. With him, Jimin added, his voice steady, controlled, like he had practiced saying it over and over again before he finally did. Jungkook's lips parted slightly. Who? Jimin hesitated. Then, Jimin? From NCT? Taehyung's tone dropped an octave, sharp as a blade. Jimin nodded. The silence that followed was louder than any scream. She's moving, Jungkook said. She's shifting targets. It's a pattern. She knows we're close to revealing more, Taehyung replied. This is retaliation, not romance. Jungkook leaned back in the creaking studio chair, running a hand down his face. She never stops. It's like she's one step ahead of us always. She's not ahead, Jimin said firmly. She's afraid. The statement made Taehyung pause. He looked at Jimin with a flicker of surprise. You think she's scared? Jimin nodded. She used to have control. Now the control is slipping. And you know what people like her do when they lose control? They burn the whole place down, Jungkook muttered, eyes darkening. They had planned to use this next podcast to unpack the digital folder recovered from her discarded phone. The files, half deleted, some encrypted, showed not only her obsession with Jungkook but evidence of tracking other idols, choreographers, even 2 rookie actors and a film director. The web she spun was far wider than they imagined. She has connections we haven't touched yet, Taehyung said, pacing. But someone's funding her. Coordinating this. She's not doing it alone. Jimin scrolled through his phone. A few stylists reached out after last episode aired. Anonymous accounts, but the stories match. She infiltrated other agencies. Played the same game. Seduced, manipulated, blackmailed. It's a pattern. She's a professional saboteur, Taehyung murmured. A ghost in the system. Then Jungkook's phone lit up again. A new message. No text. Just a photo. It was him. On stage. From behind. The timestamp was from the night of their final concert in Osaka last year. He remembered that show. Remembered the strange sense of being watched even after the lights went out. He thought it was nothing, just nerves. But now he knew better. Attached to the image was a voice note. He hesitated, then played it. Her voice, soft, sultry, dangerous. You still move like you belong to me. Jungkook stood up so suddenly the chair clattered to the floor. Delete it, he whispered. Jimin grabbed the phone. We need to trace it. No, Jungkook said, eyes wild. I don't want to hear her voice again. Not like that. Taehyung stepped between them. She's taunting you. She wants to remind you she still has access. But she slipped up. She used a burner number with a partial IP trace. We can trace this back. Jimin nodded, already texting someone. We'll go through the hacker who helped us before. But Jungkook, you need to be ready for the worst. Jungkook's voice was quiet. What's worse than knowing I was just one move in her game? Taehyung stared at him. Worse is finding out you weren't her first. They all turned toward the small monitor on the side table. Jimin had paused on a screenshot sent anonymously, an old article pulled from a defunct entertainment blog. Blurry photos. A young idol, his face censored, walking out of a hotel with a woman in a hoodie. The caption read, "Scandal in the making? Rookie star spotted with mystery woman before vanishing from group schedule." The date was 3 years ago. That's her, Taehyung said. Same bag. Same pendant. Same walk. And the idol? Jimin asked. Retired. Disappeared mid-promotion. The label cited mental health. He never came back. She broke him, Jungkook whispered. The next 2 hours passed in a rush of strategizing, audio cue marking, timeline breakdowns, legal consulting under aliases, and whispers of retaliation. They were crafting the most dangerous episode yet. This one would be called The Idol in the Mirror. Because this wasn't just about one woman. This was about an entire culture of silence. Of weaponized intimacy. Of manipulation wrapped in affection. She was not an outlier, she was a symptom. And Jungkook, Taehyung, and Jimin were going to expose it. The mic was live again. I once thought I could save her, Jungkook began. That if I loved her enough, if I made her feel seen, she'd change. But the truth is, she never wanted saving. She wanted destruction. He paused. And I was the first mirror she used to break everyone else. Taehyung picked up. We were warned. By each other. By our instincts. But silence is how people like her survive. She counts on it. Jimin's voice followed. This is not just a story about a toxic relationship. This is a story about an industry that doesn't protect its own. Then Jungkook played a file from the phone, a recovered voicemail she had sent to someone else. A different male idol's name was spoken. It wasn't Jimin. It wasn't anyone from their circle. It was someone no one expected. An actor known for romantic dramas. Family-friendly. Kind-hearted. He thinks I'm his salvation, she had said in the recording. Just like Jungkook did. The podcast didn't end with a closing monologue this time. It ended with 3 words from Taehyung. Check your mirrors. They dropped the episode unannounced. Within 30 minutes, it trended worldwide. Within an hour, the actor's agency issued a statement denying any known association with her. Within 2, she posted a cryptic Instagram story. Black screen, white text. You think you know me. You don't. And then she vanished again. No new sightings. No new messages. Just silence. But the war wasn't over. Jungkook sat back in the studio chair, breathing hard. I'm not scared of her anymore, he said. Good, Taehyung replied, putting a hand on his shoulder. Because she just declared the next round. You're not going to like what I found. Taehyung's voice broke through the morning haze like a bullet through glass. Jungkook barely lifted his head from the sofa where he had passed out the night before, still in the same hoodie, the same jeans. His phone was on his chest, buzzing with silent notifications, some from fans, some from contacts he didn't remember giving his number to, and one from an unknown number that simply said, "Still watching." Jimin stood in the doorway, his jaw already tight, coffee untouched in his hand. What is it now? Jungkook asked hoarsely, brushing his tangled hair back. Another video? Taehyung didn't speak at first. He sat down across from Jungkook, opened his laptop, and turned the screen toward him. It was a company memo. Not an email. A printed memo that had been photographed. Confidential watermark. Internal distribution only. The subject line read, Asset Risk Assessment. Jeon Jungkook. Jimin swore under his breath. Jungkook blinked as if trying to process whether the screen was playing a cruel prank. I got this from a junior staffer in strategy, Taehyung said. She's scared. But she said she couldn't sleep knowing this was circulating. Jungkook leaned forward, reading every word with an ache building in his chest. The memo outlined a summary of ongoing public narrative risks, suggesting that Jungkook's involvement with a civilian whose digital history poses significant reputational liability had reached a threshold point. There was language about containment strategies. media narratives, even suggestions to explore legal distance if the idol could not be managed effectively. They're treating me like I'm infected, Jungkook muttered. They knew, Taehyung said. They knew about her. Maybe not everything, but enough. Jimin took a slow sip of his coffee, though it was clear his mind wasn't on the drink. You think they were watching all this time and just waiting to see if it blew over? Taehyung nodded. And now that it hasn't, they're preparing for impact. I gave them 10 years, Jungkook whispered. My entire youth. My privacy. My sanity. And they want to manage me like I'm a broken PR campaign. The room fell into a heavy silence. The kind that comes just before a war breaks open. Then Taehyung said, there's more. Jungkook didn't want to hear it, but he knew he had to. She wasn't working alone. I know we've said that before, but now I have proof. He pulled out another phone, a burner, and opened a voice file. This came from a security contractor who used to work surveillance gigs for idol events. He recognized her face. From 3 years ago. He was told to keep tabs on her during a fan meeting. Jimin frowned. Who hired him? Taehyung took a breath. HYB. Jungkook stood up like the floor burned beneath him. You're lying. I wish I was. Jimin slammed his cup down, coffee sloshing onto the table. They knew she was dangerous. They knew she had done this before. And they let her near Jungkook anyway. No, Taehyung said. They didn't let her. They used her. That stopped everything. No, Jungkook said, almost begging. No. Don't say that. She was a tool, Taehyung said carefully. A wild card they tried to leverage. Maybe to test you. Maybe to push a narrative. Maybe to create the illusion of maturity, rebellion, a more real Jungkook for the public. Jimin shook his head. Even for HYB, that's a new low. Not if they thought they could control her, Taehyung added. Jungkook sat back down, face pale. So I was never in a relationship. I was in a campaign. The podcast studio remained empty that morning. No red light. No microphones. Just 3 men grappling with a betrayal deeper than anything they had faced before. Jungkook stood up again, pacing, grabbing his phone. I'm done asking for permission, he said. We're recording. No script. Jimin asked. No script, Jungkook replied. Just the truth. An hour later, the mic was live. Jungkook's voice was steady as he began. I've stayed quiet to protect the people around me. I've smiled through scandals. I've followed every rule, every script, every carefully crafted image they gave me. Pause. Breath. But not anymore. Jimin leaned in. We learned something this week. Something that shook everything we thought we knew about the people meant to protect us. Taehyung followed. It turns out the enemy wasn't just outside. Sometimes it's in the same room. Wearing the same badge. Speaking the same language. Jungkook looked into the camera. To the people at HYB who think I'm just an asset, I see you. I see the memos. I see the calculations. And I want you to know. I'm not yours. Not anymore. They played the leaked voice file. Let the listeners hear the contractor's testimony. Let the cracks show. The internet exploded. Hashtag Protect Jungkook trended. So did hashtag HYB Speak Up. But that wasn't the real impact. The real shock came when a second voice file surfaced, this time from an anonymous former HYB employee. I was told to monitor her communications. Not to stop her, but to document what Jungkook did. They said it was insurance. Said if he ever went rogue, we'd have leverage. And just like that, the illusion shattered. Jungkook cried in the studio. Not because he was weak. Because for once he wasn't holding back. He spoke about the isolation. The feeling of being treated like a product. The nights he wondered if his silence made him complicit. Jimin wiped his own eyes. We love our fans. But we've paid for that love with pieces of ourselves. Taehyung leaned forward. And it's time we ask who's protecting us. There was no outro music. No branded sponsor. Just 3 broken voices choosing truth over safety. And a storm waiting on the other side of the studio walls. The red light went out. But the world was just waking up. Do you even remember signing it? Jungkook stared at the grainy PDF on the screen in front of him, lips parted but soundless. He didn't respond immediately. Not because he didn't have anything to say, but because what Taehyung just asked made the back of his throat dry and his heart knock against his chest. The document was marked confidential. A contract. A supplemental clause allegedly added during his 2021 renewal period, one he didn't remember ever discussing, let alone approving. And yet, his digital signature was there. Sharp. Clean. Perfectly placed. Jimin leaned over his shoulder, eyes narrowed. That's not your signature. Jungkook closed his eyes. No, he whispered. It's not. Taehyung looked up from his laptop. Then we have a forgery. Outside the studio, Seoul moved on like nothing had happened. Inside, the walls were humming from the fallout of episode 5. HYB's silence was deafening. Not a single official statement. Not even a denial. Which made the fandom's anger louder. More dangerous. Like a wave preparing to crush the very island it once worshipped. But this contract was different. If the signature was forged, it meant everything was about to shift from betrayal to full-blown criminal conspiracy. Jungkook stood up. We need a lawyer. A real one. Not HYB's. I already contacted someone, Taehyung said. Remember Jiwoo? Youngie's cousin. She's discreet. Jimin's voice was colder than usual. I don't care if she's discreet. I care if she's brutal. Taehyung nodded. She is. The room felt darker now. Not in lighting, but in tone. The truth had gone past personal. It was now systemic. Corrupt. Cold. Jungkook began pacing. What if this goes to court? What if they turn the tables and accuse me of slander? Jimin scoffed. They forged your signature, leaked your image to a woman who exploited you and tracked your every move. Let them try. Taehyung sat still, eyes locked on the signature on screen. They knew you wouldn't notice. They knew you trusted them. And they banked on that. Jungkook paused, staring out the window even though the blinds were shut. They trained us to obey. Not to question. Smile for the camera. Bow on cue. Apologize even when we're the ones bleeding. Jimin's face twitched. And now we make them bleed back. The next hour was spent verifying metadata, pulling the contract into forensic software, analyzing pixel inconsistencies, timestamp verification. All signs pointed to alteration. Someone, maybe even several people, had collaborated to insert clauses into Jungkook's deal. Clauses that gave the company extended control over his image rights, personal recordings, and most shocking of all, the right to greenlight strategic third-party relationships that enhanced public relatability. Jungkook's mouth went dry as he reread that line. Strategic third-party relationships. That wasn't just about business partners. That was her. She was contractual. Jimin saw it the same moment he did. They planned it. Every step. They signed off on her. Taehyung turned his laptop around again. Look at the name in the approval log. Jungkook leaned in. And felt like vomiting. Min Jiwoo. Not Youngie's cousin. But another woman, an executive assistant he'd met briefly in 2020. The same woman who had handed him a gift box during his birthday live that year. The same woman who had been present at 3 key overseas events. Always in the background. Always smiling. Always quiet. She was the handler, Jimin muttered. She wasn't just staff. She was watching. Jungkook collapsed onto the couch. So what does that make me? A puppet? A narrative device? Taehyung knelt beside him. It makes you a human being who was used. But you're not broken. I feel like I am. You're not. There was something steady in Taehyung's voice now. Something grounding. And Jungkook clung to it. The podcast that night was recorded under no agenda. No outline. Just raw fury. Jungkook spoke first. I never signed that contract. But it controlled my life for 2 years. Do you know what it feels like to read words you never wrote, tied to decisions you never made? To look into a mirror and realize the person the world fell in love with wasn't even you, but a projection built by others. Jimin followed. We're done with projections. We're done with being idols shaped by silence. If this destroys everything, so be it. At least we'll finally be ourselves. Taehyung's voice was low, deliberate. The truth is messy. But it's the only thing we have left. They didn't cut anything. They aired it all, audio, documents, confessions. Even the forged signature, blurred just enough to avoid litigation but clear enough to fuel the fire. Within an hour, a HYB whistleblower account posted a thread. I was in the room when the clause was added. I was told it was standard procedure. But Jungkook never signed it. Someone else did. And it wasn't the first time. The fandom detonated. Reporters called nonstop. Lawyers posted reaction threads. Agencies across Seoul issued emergency lockdowns on contracts. And the idol mentioned in episode 4, the actor, posted a statement. I believe you. I stand with you. I was targeted too. That single tweet caused a shift no one saw coming. The silence broke. Idols, models, background dancers, editors, stylists. They began speaking out. Some anonymously, others boldly. And at the center of it all, Jungkook sat in the studio with a broken voice and a wildfire in his chest. We started this podcast to clear the air, he said. But maybe, Taehyung added, we just started a revolution. And then Jimin looked straight into the camera. We don't want apologies. We want the system to change. And change had already begun. But just as they turned off the mic, Jungkook's phone buzzed again. No number. Just a video. He played it. It was from her. She was crying. Not performative. Not seductive. Real tears. You don't know everything. They used me too. Then it cut to black. For the first time in weeks, Jungkook didn't know what to feel. Anger. Pity. Doubt. Or the most dangerous thing of all. Hope. Jungkook didn't sleep. The video looped in his head all night, the flicker of candlelight behind her, the trembling in her voice, the mascara smudged beneath her eyes. But it wasn't her tears that haunted him. It was the way she looked into the camera as if begging not just for forgiveness but for recognition. As if, despite everything, she still thought he'd understand. Still believed he might care. But something about it was off. Too perfect. Too well-framed. Too deliberate. By the time dawn crept in through the blinds, Jungkook was still seated in the same spot, legs pulled to his chest, hoodie draped over his head. The floor of the studio apartment they'd turned into their war room was scattered with coffee cups, wrinkled transcripts, broken pens, and silent phones that felt like they were only resting before the next storm. Jimin entered first. Bleary-eyed. Hoodie low. No words. Just a nod. Taehyung followed with breakfast that none of them would eat. She sent the crying video to me too, Jimin said, finally breaking the silence. And to me, Taehyung added. With a different caption. Jungkook blinked. What did yours say? Taehyung unlocked his phone and showed the screen. You don't know the whole story. Ask your CEO. Jimin sighed. Mine said, don't believe everything he tells you. Jungkook swallowed. She's playing divide and conquer again. But why now? Jimin said, rubbing his eyes. Why cry now? Because it's working, Jungkook replied. They turned to him. He stared at the floor. Because part of me watched that video and remembered the first night she kissed me. And I hated that I remembered. Silence. Taehyung sat across from him. She's trying to create emotional static. Distort the signal. Shake the foundation. And it's working, Jungkook admitted, voice hollow. I thought I was past it. But her face, it made me question everything again. Jimin looked toward the window, voice low. Maybe that's the scariest part of manipulation. Even after the mask falls, sometimes you still miss the illusion. They didn't speak again for a long time. Just the soft hum of the city rising around them. Until Jungkook's phone buzzed. An email. From Jiwoo. Subject line, you need to see this. Attached was a zip file. Labeled, internal, staged initiative. They opened it. Video files. Audio. Documents. Meeting notes. Internal chat logs. Planning materials from HYB marketing. All referencing the persona narrative campaign. The goal? Restructure Jungkook's image from mysterious idol to emotionally available man. The method? A controlled emotional arc. Real footage. Subtle social cues. A partner figure to generate relatability and virality. Followed by public separation and a redemption phase. And the worst part? It was dated 2 months before Jungkook met her. He stood, the chair behind him tipping over. They designed my heartbreak? Jimin's hands curled into fists. They orchestrated a public love story with a private cost. Taehyung's face darkened. She wasn't just used. She was scripted. Jungkook's hands trembled. I thought I was losing control. But I never had it. Then he saw the name again. Min Jiwoo. Assigned as project lead. With a note. Ensure primary asset believes organic connection. Use auxiliary to initiate stage 1. Auxiliary. That was her. She was never in control, Jimin whispered. She was just another tool. Jungkook's head dropped into his hands. He'd been angry for so long. Hurt. Betrayed. But now something worse filled his chest. Pity. Does she even know she was being played too? He murmured. Taehyung looked away. She knew something. She had to. Jimin exhaled. Even if she did, does it matter? The damage is done. Then Taehyung opened one last file. A voice memo. From her. Timestamped last week. They played it. Her voice was softer. Tired. Worn. I thought I could win. I thought if I made you love me for real, it wouldn't matter. That maybe I could stop being a ghost. But it was never about me, was it? A pause. A sniffle. They promised me exposure. Then they cut me off. Said I got too close. That you were spiraling. That I'd ruined the narrative. Another pause. But I didn't ruin it. They did. They ruined both of us. Then, softly, I'm sorry, Jungkook. I really did love you. Jungkook didn't cry. But something cracked inside. He stood up and walked to the window, opening the blinds to the blinding soul sun. Taehyung joined him. Then Jimin. The war had become bigger than them. It wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about truth. Next episode, Jungkook said, voice firm, we tell the whole story. Even hers. Jimin nodded slowly. We named the system. Taehyung looked into the light. And we burn it down. That night, they recorded with cameras on. No filters. No edits. Just raw truth. Jungkook began. They say you shouldn't bite the hand that feeds you. But what if the hand also builds your cage? Jimin continued. They say idols are loved because they're perfect. But perfection is a prison. Taehyung concluded. We've learned something about truth. It's ugly. Messy. Painful. But once it's out, it can't be stopped. They titled the episode, The Tears That Lied. Not because her tears weren't real, but because they weren't the full story. And this time, they promised. They would not stop until the entire industry had to look in the mirror. And blink. The air inside the studio wasn't just heavy. It was electrified. The kind of silence that didn't feel empty but dense, like something about to break. Jungkook sat hunched forward in his chair, elbows on knees, eyes bloodshot but lucid. The soft red glow from the on-air sign had been lit for over 40 minutes now, yet no one had spoken. They were live. Millions were listening. And still nothing. Taehyung shifted first. He glanced at Jimin. Jimin shook his head. They both knew Jungkook wasn't ready. Then finally he exhaled. I need to tell you what happened when I was 17. His voice was barely above a whisper, but it hit like thunder. The chat exploded. The live stream lagged for a second, too many viewers joining at once. But they didn't stop him. No one could. I wasn't supposed to know, Jungkook said slowly, each word like a scalpel against his own skin. Back then everything was new. Exciting. I was grateful. We all were. We had dreams. Fame was something we thought we could control. Something we thought would be earned. He paused, swallowing. But one night, I heard things I wasn't supposed to hear. Taehyung's hand instinctively reached toward the table. Jimin sat straighter, tension pulling at his shoulders. I had gone back to the building after hours. I left my notebook in the rehearsal room. But when I walked past the hallway to the conference room, the door was open. I heard voices. He looked down. His fists clenched. They were talking about us. About how we'd be rolled out. What order? What image each of us should have. I remember hearing my name and the words innocent, relatable, emotionally available, like they were assigning me a marketing genre. I didn't know what half the words meant. Jimin's jaw tightened. He had heard similar conversations. But never so early. Never so raw. They said the public needed to feel like they discovered me. Like I was theirs. They talked about which scandals would be allowed. Which ones wouldn't. About pre-planning a minor dating rumor by year 3 to spike relatability scores. Jungkook laughed once. It was bitter. I was 17. I thought it was normal. I thought that was just how the industry worked. He stared straight into the camera. And I was right. Taehyung spoke softly. You've never told us this before. I didn't know how Jungkook replied. Because if I told you, I'd have to admit I stayed quiet. That I watched the scripts unfold and didn't say anything. Jimin broke in. Because we were kids. You were surviving. No, Jungkook said. I was complying. The guilt was crawling up his throat. But he didn't stop. From that day, I started noticing everything. The way they used staff to manipulate us. The way they'd pit us against each other when they needed a new narrative. The way they protected their chosen ones and sacrificed the rest. He closed his eyes for a moment. I knew about others before they fell. I knew what happened to that boy from the other company, the one who suddenly disappeared after that scandal. I knew the girl who OD'd after being pushed into a fake relationship she couldn't escape. Jimin's voice cracked. Why didn't you tell us? Because I thought we could survive it if we just played the game. The room was so quiet, the buzzing of a single fly felt like a scream. Taehyung spoke next. Do you think she knew about all of this when she met you? Jungkook hesitated. Yes, he said. But not all of it. I think she thought she was scamming the scammers. That she could win. That maybe if she played her role well enough, she'd get out rich. Respected. Famous. But the system doesn't let you win unless you become it. Jimin stood up and paced. So what now? We've exposed the contracts. The staged romance. The illegal surveillance. And now you're saying you've known how rotten the foundation is since before we debuted. Jungkook nodded slowly. And we've only scratched the surface. He reached down and opened a battered notebook from 2016. He placed it in front of the mic. This was mine. My actual notebook. I wrote down everything. Not just lyrics. Not just feelings. Observations. Questions. Dates. Names. He flipped through the pages. And stopped at one. March 4th, 2017. Tonight they told me I'm not allowed to eat carbs for 2 months because my face is getting too round. They said fans want a sharp jawline. They told Taehyung to stop hugging me during interviews. Said it confuses the narrative. The page shook slightly in his hands. I was a boy, not a puppet. He turned the page. July 23, 2018. They said if I ever got caught in a real relationship, they'd plant evidence it was a setup. That they'd protect me if I followed instructions and destroy me if I didn't. Another page. November 2nd, 2020. She kissed me tonight. Not the company. Not the plan. Her. And for a second I believed it was real. That I was more than a product. That I was someone worth loving. But then she checked her phone. And I saw it. A message from her handler. Did he take the bait yet? Jungkook looked up. I closed the notebook that night and never wrote in it again. Jimin sat back down. You kept all this? Yes, Jungkook said. Because deep down I knew one day I'd have to choose. Stay a symbol. Or be a man. The episode continued for another hour. Taehyung read entries aloud. Jimin spoke about his own early warnings, how he was once told to smile less, speak softer, cry more. They played an unreleased voice recording of a staff member berating a young trainee for gaining weight, telling her she'd never be loved if she looked like that. It wasn't just about Jungkook anymore. This was about everyone. At the end, Jungkook faced the camera again. If you're watching this and you're a trainee or a fan or someone who's been lied to by this machine, I need you to know you're not crazy. You're not alone. And you're not weak for wanting to feel real. He inhaled. I was the boy who knew too much. But I was too scared to speak. Not anymore. He turned off the mic. The red light went dark. The moment the stream ended, the phone rang. It was Namjoon. Jungkook hesitated. Then answered. And for the first time in months, all Namjoon said was I'm proud of you. There had been moments Jungkook feared silence. The kind of silence that filled the cracks between text messages never sent, or the cold void after a door slammed, or the 3-second pause during a live broadcast where everything could go wrong. Silence was once the enemy. Silence meant abandonment. Isolation. Shame. But not today. Today, the silence wasn't empty. It was listening. The episode from last night hadn't just broken records. It had broken walls. People weren't just trending hashtags. They were organizing. Whistleblowers from other entertainment companies began releasing their own statements. Backup dancers, rookie idols, agency staff, even therapists who had been silenced by ironclad NDAs, they were all stepping forward. Saying what they knew. What they saw. What they endured. And it all came back to one thing. The system. Built on image. Fueled by silence. Protected by fear. Jungkook sat in the podcast studio, but this time, the mics were off. He wasn't preparing to record. He wasn't thinking about ratings or edits or strategy. He was holding his phone, replaying Namjoon's voice in his head. I'm proud of you. 3 words. More powerful than any award. Jimin walked in first. Hair unstyled. No mic. No camera. Just presence. You look like you've been waiting for something, he said quietly. I was, Jungkook replied. I didn't know what. Maybe for the world to change. Taehyung came next. Coffee in hand. His fingers tapping a nervous rhythm against the paper cup. Someone from KBS called, he said. They want to do a sit-down. Full national coverage. No filters. Jungkook raised an eyebrow. They're not scared anymore? Taehyung scoffed. They are. But they know which way the wind is blowing. The 3 of them stood in silence. Until Jimin said it. We should end it tonight. Taehyung looked at him. End what? The podcast. The confessions. The files. We've said everything. We've burned the ground. Now it's time to let the world decide what grows from it. Jungkook stared at the floor. And if we stop talking and nothing changes? Jimin stepped closer. Then we start again. But next time not from the shadows. Not through a mic. From stages. From courtrooms. From whatever platform they can't shut down. There was something final in his tone. Not defeat. Closure. Taehyung nodded slowly. If we do this, we do it with everything. Jungkook stood. Then tonight, we speak for the last time. They titled the episode and then the silence spoke back. The countdown began. Millions were waiting. And for the first time, they didn't tease a trailer. No promo graphics. No clickbait titles. Just a single post from Jungkook. Tonight, the silence gets the final word. The studio was dimmed. The red light turned on. Jungkook sat forward. This is our final recording. His voice was calm. Tired, but unbroken. We've talked about the contracts. The surveillance. The fake relationships. The betrayals. But tonight, I want to talk about something else. He paused. I want to talk about healing. Jimin leaned into the mic. We didn't start this to destroy. We started it to survive. But somehow survival became revolution. Taehyung followed. And the truth is, we're still scared. We still wake up wondering who's watching, who's listening, what they'll take next. Jungkook's voice cracked. But we're not hiding anymore. He reached for the notebook, the one from years ago. He opened to the final page. There, in shaky handwriting, was a sentence he had written only hours before the podcast went live. Maybe I'll never get back the years I lost, but I can make sure no one else loses theirs. He read it aloud. The chat blew up. Tears. Applause emojis. Words in every language. Then Taehyung spoke. I used to think silence was safety. That if I stayed quiet, no one could hurt me. But silence lets people get hurt. It lets monsters hide. Jimin added, and we've all been complicit. Even us. Especially us. But not anymore. Then Jungkook leaned in. HYB has issued a statement. He held up the paper. No edits. No redactions. We acknowledge systemic failures. We are launching an independent inquiry into all past projects, contracts, and employee conduct. We support artist-led advocacy and will fully cooperate with ongoing legal reviews. He let the paper fall. It's not enough. But it's a start. They played one last audio clip. Her voice. No script. No tears. Just truth. I heard him. And I let myself be used. I don't want to be remembered as the villain. I want to be remembered as someone who finally told the truth. I'm sorry. It ended. And the three of them looked at one another. There were no more secrets. No more files. No more voices waiting in the dark. Just breath. Real. Honest. Free. Jungkook faced the mic one last time. To every trainee out there who thinks they have to be perfect, you don't. You just have to be you. That's enough. That's always been enough. Jimin added, to the fans who never stopped believing in us even when we stopped believing in ourselves, thank you. Taehyung leaned in. And to the ones who tried to silence us, we heard you. But now you hear us. The screen faded to black. But before the live stream ended, one sentence appeared in white letters. We were just the product. But we became the voice. And then the silence took over. But this time it wasn't fear. It was peace. It was power. It was the sound of the world listening. And finally, the sound of it changing.